The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the ECAT staff or board of directors.
Giving a voice to the voiceless, pulling stories out of the shadows and putting them under the spotlight, making sure that each person is valued and cared for. This is Humanity First with Peter Evers, presented by BAMSI.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Humanity First. My name is Peter Evers, the host of the podcast. This week we have a special treat for you. It is August, and August, as I'm sure everybody knows, is a National Breastfeeding Month here in the United States. And we're going to be focusing a little bit today on one of our programs, one of our 120 different programs that we have at BAMSI, and that is our WIC program, our Women, Infants, and Children program, which I think is known by many, many people, and so many thousands of people have benefited from the services, the nutritional services, and the breastfeeding assistance services that this particular program provides. We have two programs that are WIC, one in Quincy and one in Brockton. And we're going to be talking to Angela Brown, who is a recently new director of the WIC program in Brockton. And we'll hear a little bit about the importance of breastfeeding, but also the importance of nutrition from 0 to 5 and how important it is that a good start for kids in life is reflected in later life as well. And so we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Jamie. I'm an essential worker here at BAMSI, and I'm a nurse. Nurses are essential here at BAMSI because as nurses, we really have the opportunity to make an impact. We have very small ratios, so we have the opportunity to really learn everything about the person served and be able to give the best care. It really serves such a great purpose for me as being a nurse and really why I came into nursing. Learn more about nursing opportunities at bamsijobs.org.
Giving a voice to the voiceless, pulling stories out of the shadows and putting them under the spotlight, making sure that each person is valued and cared for. This is Humanity First with Peter Evers, presented by BAMSI.
Welcome back, everybody, to the show. And as I promised a few minutes ago, we have a very special guest today. We have Angela Brown, who is the director of our WIC program in Brockton. Angela, hi, how are you?
Hey, good morning. Hi, how's everybody? I'm
Good,
doing well.
Good. You know, we are having this conversation because it's August, and August is a important month in the WIC calendar, I would think, because it is National Breastfeeding Month, as I remember. And I really want to get into that and talk a little bit about childhood nutrition and maybe some of the inequities that exist in our country and, in fact, the whole world in terms of child development. But the WIC program is something that I think a lot of people have heard of, but if you actually said, what does WIC stand for? It might be difficult for people to answer, except for those thousands and thousands of people who get this service, which is so important in terms of helping families at a very early stage with babies. And so tell us a little bit about WIC. First of all, what does it stand for?
What is WIC? Okay, so again, thank you for having me today. So WIC stands for WIC, a Woman, Infant, and Children, and it's a program that was developed to help the nourishment of children in the fetal, stage, as well as mothers, and then into the infancy stage and in childhood. And we go up until 5 years old, serving nutritional foods or offering different benefits packaged with foods that help, nourish a child and help them develop and to grow into these healthy young people.
Yeah, I'm really interested because I was reading a little bit about the mission of WIC. And of course, it's a federal program that is administered by the states,
Indeed.
I believe. And so that money sort of filters from the feds to the states, to people like BAMSI, who, by the way, have two WIC programs, one in Quincy and one in Brockton. And I would say those two WIC programs are probably two of the most busy of all of the WIC programs, because there is a lot of need in our communities and different need. But, when you look at what the mission is, it speaks about making sure that eligible families are getting the nutrition and the good start, if you like, to life for kids, which I think is wonderful. How many people do we serve in the Brockton program?
Yeah, so BAMSI is doing phenomenal, and so is WIC, because we are one and the same, but we are serving Brockton and beyond. So neighborhoods like Avon, neighborhoods like Randolph and Quincy, like you said before. And for Brockton, in the Brockton main office, we have 5 different sites. So we also work with the Brockton Neighborhood Health Center. We have sites there. We have a site in Stoughton at the YMCA. And for our main site, though, we're serving at least 10,537. And I'm quoting that from our last year's statistics. This year's information hasn't come out quite yet, but we serve a lot of Brockton.
Well, you know, if you think about that, and I say this a lot, that WIC probably serves, I know WIC serves more people in the WIC program than anybody else in BAMSI. And of course, I think there are similar numbers in Quincy. So 20,000 people are receiving WIC services in our geographic area, which is extraordinary.
Yeah, so busy is an understatement, right,
no
Peter?
kidding. So what does it look like if I'm a parent with a 10-month-old, for instance? Answer that question about eligibility, because I'm interested in that. Eligible families. How do you become eligible to be a WIC family?
That's a good question, and we get that a lot when they're in the community. So in order to be eligible for WIC, we serve low income. So it is income eligible, and currently, right now, our income has increased just a bit, with the cost of living and such. So like for a family of two, the income is just over $3,000 a month. Okay, and so when someone has MassHealth, or they have the other federal programs like SNAP, or they have transit assistance, or DTA, then they're all automatically eligible for WIC, which makes it so much, the application process streamlined there.
Yeah, I bet that's a lot easier, because I'm thinking
for sure.
If you stack some of those benefits on top of each other, you might take some eligibility for people out of that, but you don't do that. So
no, not at all, because I feel like we serve all the same people. And at the end of the day, they need help. And and that's what these programs are for, especially for the younger population.
One of the things that really I'm proud about with WIC is how it is embedded in the community. So you began by saying that we're in these different sites. I know that we've been doing a lot of work with recent new Americans as well, coming into the country as well. Talk a little bit about what goes on in a visit, if I come in for a visit. And then I really want to talk about some of the community activities that you had, because I heard that a couple of weeks ago we were at a farmer's market, which is just such a wonderful idea. But a little bit, what do I expect when I come in?
Yeah, so I love that WIC does offer this to beyond who we see, if you will. So now that we have a new immigrant population, we offer it, non-dependent on their status. And so we want people to know that they can still apply for WIC and they're eligible for WIC in that sense. And so we've opened 2 different shelter sites in Stoughton, and we really do serve a really high population of Haitian immigrant families. And yeah, this is what we do, and they're eligible just by means of coming here and having, again, those different programs that help support them, like MassHealth and food stamps and things like that. So a typical appointment, say for instance, they've already gotten the application in and they're scheduled for an appointment, they would typically get met by an intake person, and we call them PAs. They'd get their information, and we have connections to check for MassHealth. And so we can see a portal. We can also see they can show us their SNAP portal. And that is kind of like proof, if you will, for their income and for their status and their eligibility. So once they've seen them at the intake, then they're going over to the nutritionist, who do maybe about 40 minutes, half an hour long appointment to talk about the different nutritional needs.
Yeah. How many staff do we have?
We have about 28 staff at the moment, and they are phenomenal. If I could brag on them, I could brag on them for days.
Please do.
They speak a lot of different languages, and they totally meet the need. People come in with all walks of lives, all races, all ethnicities, and I feel like our staff totally reflects that.
Yeah. Well, if you think about the number of staff versus the number of people we serve, that is a very high fraction there that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
I love the program so much because it is so welcoming, and this whole idea of providing services for those in need, as opposed to those who are eligible for it, in that sense, is really important. Mm-hmm. And I've been reading recently. I'm not originally from this country. I'm from Great Britain, and about 5 years ago, the Conservative government decided that they would deny benefits to families who had a third child, right? So you could only get benefits for 2 children. Wow. If you got benefits for 4 children, you'd only get benefits for 2. And I remember thinking, how punitive that is for a child to be brought into the world and then denied a benefit that around nutrition, for instance. So it really is a wonderful thing that in this country, WIC is available to everybody. We have to preserve that right for people, for children as they come into the world. Mm-hmm. So just shifting slightly a little bit away from the politics of Britain, which I don't know how we got there, to what we talked about at the top of the conversation, which is August. I think it was the 1st to the 7th was the first week of the month of National Breastfeeding Month. Tell me a little bit about that. To begin with, there is an awful lot written about the benefits of exclusive breastfeeding. Mm-hmm. I am assuming you're on board with that.
I am totally on board. You pegged me right, Peter. So yeah, I can share a little bit about my personal experience later, but breastfeeding is crucial. And I feel like once WIC was developed over 50 years, our 50th birthday is coming up. So over 50 years ago, it was a desired need. People were seeing that kids were coming into the school and they were malnourished and they needed support in that area. And so that's kind of the basis of why WIC was created, to build up this strong, America. I know you don't want to go too close to politics, but this is kind of where we come from, just a little history. Mm-hmm. And so, 50 years forward, we're still meeting the needs and we're, I would say, exceeding the needs. Now, of course, there are areas where we should have some more support and we need to grow, of course. But for right now, especially with WIC is able to offer these nutritional needs for the mom and like the family collectively, but also we're, supporting the mom on other levels. So we have community health services and resources that we connect the mom and the family to. We offer breastfeeding support in the office with our peer counseling program. So these are women and moms that have had children under WIC and have had those benefits. And so now they've kind of graduated, if you will, in a sense, from WIC, and they're here to help and support those that are still on WIC. So how better is that, to connect with someone that was once in your shoes and you can really relate, if you will.
Yeah, it's a little bit like that. And that lived experience model survives in substance use disorder treatment and mental health treatment. And you're absolutely right. If somebody has walked in those shoes before, the people are going to listen to them. Breastfeeding is not for everybody, right?
Right.
And well, what I mean by that is it's not easy. I think, especially guys, I think, well, there's no problem with that. Why don't you just breastfeed? And I did hear a couple of things recently around when there was the formula shortage, that people who not in the know would just say, well, why don't you just breastfeed? It's not that simple, right?
It's not that simple, Peter. And that's a good lens to put on when you're talking about breastfeeding and trying to understand why people do and do not breastfeed. So a lot of our moms, they do share the same stories. And so you have some that go off the bat, say, okay, this is my first pregnancy. I want to breastfeed. I'm going to do this, 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 and this. And then they have a baby. And then they're not even sure what it even looks like, for one, to breastfeed. Right. Then they're experiencing these pains that they weren't told about previously. They don't have the support in the hospitals where it being baby friendly and having the knowledge beforehand of offering the formula beforehand so that, you don't confuse the baby and that you make the breastfeeding experience as successful as possible. So we teach these things when the participants come into the office. They have breastfeeding classes, but we also have, it's called infant nutrition classes, where they talk about the benefits of breastfeeding, not only solely for the nutrition for the infant, but also, like you said, the mental health part for the mom, and how when she breastfeeds, she has these endorphins released, these feel-good hormones that connect her and the baby. And people just see it as, oh, that's bonding. But there really is a scientific background behind why it works and why it's so successful and why moms are really innately natural at doing this. And so what happens when you have a mom who has a C-section or a mom who, doesn't have it has a lot of issues with breastfeeding and lactation and actually making the milk. And so all these things come into play, but education is key. Yeah. So, there's ways around it. You can talk to moms and how to support what they are, expected to do or what they would like to do. But at the end of the day, you go with what happens, and we plan the moms for both cases. And of course, that that helps them not to feel shamed or, afterwards if they can't necessarily breastfeed. So
Yeah. I love that, because there are so many assumptions that we make about parenthood. I have 3 kids, and I didn't feel prepared at all on day one.
Who's prepared,
No.
By day third child, who's prepared?
Exactly. So, we touched on this a little bit before. Maybe this is a good place to sort of wind up, because in a way, your WIC journey has come full circle, right?
It has. I am so in love with WIC.
You
And I
can
say
tell.
that with such a passion. Over 18 years ago, I had WIC myself, and I was actually in the Quincy office. And so I give big shout outs to Eugenia, because she was there all those 18 years ago, and she was welcoming. The environment was welcoming. The staff, the nutritionists, they were very encouraging. And so that's what kind of piqued my interest to stay in nutrition and to get my nutritional degree and to one day become a WIC nutritionist. I think I totally aspired that within my own, idea of what I wanted to be, because I felt like their environment was fulfilling not only to the participants, but it was fulfilling to them. So they left every day feeling accomplished, like they helped somebody. And so now that I'm the director, fast forward, how many years now?
18 years, yeah.
18 plus years.
Yeah.
I've been a nutritionist over 20 years, but I always aspired to have that welcoming feeling.
Yeah.
And so as busy as we are at the Brockton WIC office, I aspire to have the same feeling. I want the participants to come in and feel welcome, and to feel that they're heard, and to feel like this is a place that their kids are welcomed. As crazy as life gets, we know kids are loud, but all are welcome there, because we can't just take one portion of the family. We encompass the whole thing. Like I always talk about Yuri Bronfenbrenner and how, he encompasses the whole family and targets the stress of the family before you can even start to think about giving somebody nutrition education. You kind of have to tackle those things beforehand so that, they feel supported in all ways.
Yeah. I love that holistic approach. And I can say, having been through the doors of WIC a couple of times recently, it is one of the most welcoming places. You're really putting your stamp on that, Angela. But 20 years ago, you had a baby.
I'm not dating myself, not at all. But 18 years ago, I had a baby. My son, he's actually just accepted to Stonehill College, and I'm so excited, because this is it's like a pivotal moment in my life. I feel your first child going off, but I wouldn't have been able to get here without that support. And I totally attribute it to not only just WIC, but the support that happens around a family. And, even after I've had a couple of children, I have 5 children. So after I've had like my 3rd and 4th child, working for BAMSI and working for WIC was the perfect place to be. We talk about how we can encourage moms, not so much just with the education, but, putting the policies and putting the actions behind it. So here we are now, fast forward, we want to make sure these women are supported when they go back to work. And we, our retention rate is great. Initiation for breastfeeding is great. And we have maybe about 92% compared to the state, which is like 85% initiation. Then it starts to trickle down a little bit, 3 months. And then by 6 months, it's at like 50%. And so we want to encourage moms to continue to breastfeed. And even the Academy of Pediatrics recommend 2 years now. Right. So we encourage that. We stamp that. But just, moving forward, I would like to see our environment reflect more. Like I want moms to know that breastfeeding is supported. And so the way they could do that is, get the political members out there familiar with what needs to happen. And I know the Family Act is a big thing, right? And making sure there's, paid family medical leave, and those things really support moms and going back to work and continuing to breastfeed.
Yeah. We're making progress.
I hope so.
Oh, yeah, we absolutely are. There's a long way to go, but we're making progress. Angela, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Peter.
There are so many other questions I have for you, but I think we're a little bit out of time.
This was a delight. Thank you.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, and see you next time.